about that, because that's really interesting that when you travel, you have a guest instructor who covers your intermediate and advanced classes, right?
Right.
Okay, so yeah, so tell me how. Let's jump forward. We won't start at the beginning, right?
Okay.
With kung fu and tai chi. Let's
Sure.
tell me about that machine that you've built.
Okay. So I opened my school in June of 2018. But even a little bit of backstory before that, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the MKG Seattle.
Hmm.
It's a school in Seattle under Andy Wilson, and
Yeah,
you probably
yeah,
know by the name. His instructor is Guru Rick Fay.
yeah. Uh-huh.
But in 2015, I actually I got a job there as the enrollment director slash assistant operations.
Okay.
So I was doing sales, I was teaching some classes, I was doing marketing. I was kind of overseeing the martial arts program and also kind of the CrossFit and the kids martial arts, but mainly I oversaw the adult martial arts program,
Right.
and it taught me how to run a martial arts business. Because as you
Ah,
know, a lot of martial arts school owners, no matter how talented they are in martial arts, most of them open their school as a hobby to have
right.
somewhere to train, to have somewhere to train, to work out. And that kind of taught me how to run a martial arts business. So fast forward, in 2018, I opened my own school, and but I
Hmm.
already had a lot of background on how to run a school.
Right.
So I was fortunate that when I opened my school, I was I kind of already knew the do's and don'ts. Just because, I knew that you have to run it like a business and not like a hobby. And
Yeah.
I wasn't doing it part time as a side gig to my main job, right? I quit my main job and just opened the school. Immediately got a business mentor, a group called Combat Business, that, obviously they had a bunch of other business owners that are already successful. And they
Hmm.
obviously, as a group, they come up with the best strategies to, for marketing and how to run a martial arts school and how to get new customers or students.
Right.
Um, so because of that information I gathered from them and the previous experience I got from helping run Sifu Andy's school, I was able to implement the right structure for my school as far as appointment setter, additional instructors, and just the correct operations as far as how to do the paperwork, the CRM, the
Yeah.
website, and everything else, so that
Yeah.
I was able to build a structure to where even if I'm out of town, the school runs, right? Because
Right. Yeah.
I'm not running around with my head cut off trying to do everything. I have people in certain positions that are there on a daily basis, and even though I come
Yeah.
in there and teach every day, I'm not the focal point where I have to control everything.
I just read that statement in an email from a guy named Craig Ballantyne.
Yeah,
He's the head of an outfit called, or Craig
yeah,
Ballantyne from Early to
yes,
Rise.
yes. I've
Yeah,
read his stuff.
I just read it. Okay, I just read an email from him, and that was one of the sentences. I don't I don't have to do this all by myself.
Right.
That was something that he just mentioned. Can you remember the first person who enrolled at Shaolin Mixed Martial Arts?
Well, so I already had private students. So before I opened my school, I think I had almost 20 private students, right?
Okay.
And they're a mixture of I had some Tai Chi students, so some older ladies from Tai Chi, and I had
Hmm.
some also, some private students for JKD, Kali, kickboxing, and even Kung Fu. So
Okay.
I would say maybe 12 to 14 of my private students immediately joined. Um, and
Ah,
then also during my grand opening, I had I can't remember exactly, but I think I had about 12 or 13 people join on my grand opening day. And
okay.
I do know who some of them are. Some of them are still around.
Right.
But so I was fortunate that I already kind of had a little bit of a base to start with out the gate.
Well, yeah, no, that's a great way to start, to open up and already have people enrolled. It's almost like it reminds me. I remember when the UFC gym was opening up. I think for maybe a month before they opened the door to the gym, they rented space in the same shopping center, right?
Right.
And they had some kind of classes there, but it was like an open house for a month
Right. Like a
and
pre-sale.
started right pre-sale
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. All right. So if you guys are now joining us, you just came in on the conversation between me and Sifu Victor Young of Shaolin Mixed Martial Arts. So I have to apologize not just to you. I have to apologize to Ed Stahl and even before Ed Stahl, Peter Wen, because Peter Wen almost 3 years ago gave me your name and said, "Okay, this is a guy." This is the guy that you have. So when I was going through my files, right,
Hmm.
and I'm setting up the folder for you, you know how I do, right? I'm setting up the
Right.
folder for you. I go, holy crap! Peter told me about Victor back in 2019,
Oh
but I
wow.
blame COVID. I blame COVID for it, right? So well, worth the wait. Now talking about COVID, you opened up during COVID or
A year prior to COVID. So
right?
COVID was 2019, right? And I opened
I'm
in
I'm trying to
June
remember.
June 2nd, 2018 is when I opened. And I believe COVID was like March of 2019 is when we kind of had the first shutdown, I believe. I don't know about you guys in Florida, but the rest of us.
Well, no, we shut down. We shut down, and by within 3 months of Zoom classes only, I was going crazy.
Yeah.
I didn't enjoy it. I really didn't. You
I
know.
saw some of your stuff. I think all of us martial artists were, sitting at home, right?
Yeah.
And there was a lot of the good news is there's a lot of free access to different martial arts instructors teaching for free a little bit or showing
Hmm.
stuff on Facebook via Zoom or whatnot. And I think I saw you showing some closed four count. I could be wrong, but I think you're showing some four count stuff and just some other basic
Hmm.
stuff. But I watched
Yeah.
a couple of them because I'm always trying to learn from everybody, right? I'm like, and
Yeah.
I've known of you for a while. Yep. Sifu Ed, he kind of mentioned that he just did a podcast with you, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I mentioned you and this and that." I was like, "Oh cool,"
Hmm.
you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I've known of you, and then also
Yeah.
when Sifu Ron Baliki, when he was talking about doing the movie we just did. That I don't know if you've mentioned to anybody, but when we did our stunt gig, he's like, "Oh, do
Hmm.
you know Dwight?" I was like, "Yeah, I know who he is. I've never met him before, but yeah," I was like, "Absolutely,
Right.
yeah."
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So, but now here's the thing. In doing my research on you, I can't establish your timeline. So
Okay,
let's travel back in time now
sure.
and talk about. So I know it says 1998 Kung Fu and Tai Chi.
Yes.
So I'm assuming that's how the name Shaolin Mixed Martial Arts came about because of
That's
that
correct.
influence.
So my first arts are Shaolin White Crane and Shaolin Long Fist Kung Fu, and then also Yang style Tai Chi Chuan. I started
Okay.
in 1998 under a gentleman named Daifu Jack Jones.
Hmm.
Daifu, if you don't know, means doctor versus because he's also a doctor, acupuncture and stuff.
Hmm.
But yes, that's when I started in martial arts. That was my origin. And you're right. The reason why I call my school Shaolin Mixed Martial Arts is that was my base, a lot of my foundation, and just understanding of martial arts and also how to teach and everything. I
Right.
owe a lot to my original instructor. He was a very talented martial artist. He was one of those one percenters who didn't understand when people didn't train and trained all the time. But he was probably the best instructor I ever had as far as his teaching ability, which really amazed me. He could be sitting in a chair and explain to you how to do something without getting out of the chair. Or a lot of people do
Yeah.
this weird demonstration thing where, for example, if you could do a 720 kick, and I'm like, I don't understand, you just do it in front of me again. And I still don't
Yeah.
understand, you just do it again. That's a demonstration, that's not teaching, right? We could
Right.
all
Right.
fast forward and rewind the videotape over and over again, but that's a demonstration, that's not explanation. So
Hmm.
he had a huge impact on my understanding of martial arts and also getting me addicted to martial arts and also just understanding that it's all the art of motion. Whoever can move their body more efficiently is the better martial artist, technically.
Right.
I owe a lot to him, and he, really changed my perspective on life through martial arts. So to pay homage to him, I named my school Shaolin Mixed Martial Arts because obviously, I mix in and we have Jeet Kune Do, we have Filipino Kali, we have submission wrestling, which is a mixture of Shudo, catch wrestling, and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. We have
Right.
kickboxing, which has influences from Savate, Muay Thai, Dutch kickboxing, MMA kickboxing. And then we also have the Tai Chi program. And we also have a boxing program, but that's the only program that's not originally mine. I brought in a boxing, instructor.
Okay.
But
All
yeah,
right. Give
that's
me a
why I
second.
call it Shaolin mixed martial arts, to pay homage to my beginning in my lineage.
All right. Give me a second. Let me refresh this page and unfreeze my.
Sure. Mhm.
And, all right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Every time that we have a network change here, sometimes I freeze. So it might happen a couple more times, but by the time we're
Okay.
done. All right. So okay. Well, that's a colorful background. And I saw in the notes that you sent me. So you were a Tai Chi push hands champion a number of years.
I got second place in Tai Chi push hands at a international tournament. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I know what it is, but I have never been in one or what have you. What exactly is a push hands competition?
So it depends. There's different rules depending on the tournament and what's going on. Essentially, with push hands, there's a couple of different ways. Sometimes you both of you are standing in front of each other, and the object is to using push and pull techniques and grabs and body manipulation to knock them off balance.
Okay.
Okay, so it's almost like stand up wrestling, or not. I wouldn't say sumo wrestling, but obviously there's some similarities because you're trying to knock them off balance, right?
Right.
So that's essentially what a push hands competition would include. Now, in real push hands, there's also obviously striking and joint locking, but usually in
Mhm.
those kind of competitions, it's learning how to off balance them and knocking them on the ground.
So would it have anything in common with Chi style?
Yes, I would say so. Obviously, I do both, right? I would say push hands is softer than Chisao, a
Okay.
little bit softer. But at the
Okay.
end of the day, you got to learn how to yield and know when not to yield, and all those
Right.
things. But it's very similar because you're connected with hands,
Right.
and it's a
Uh,
sensitivity drill.
and you said, and in some of the competitions, there's striking and joint locking.
Hmm.
So then that relates it. Then I'll screw up the pronunciation, but that would relate it also to Shui Jiao, the Chinese wrestling.
Yeah, a little bit, but I mean, I don't think they emphasize as much like the way they hip toss and throw.
Yeah.
But yes, I mean, so
Yeah.
for people that really understand Chinese martial arts, and there's a lot of people that don't, right? So I'm not trying to knock anybody, but especially when it comes to Tai Chi, obviously Tai Chi, as you know, is a martial art, right? And their root
Right.
and their base comes from, if you want to learn the martial art aspect, you got to learn the push hands and also the striking. But usually in the beginning, it works more on the form and just getting your body alignment and your posture and stuff.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, so essentially, with the Tai Chi, their strongest point is in that stand up clinch range, right? That's what they favor.
Yeah.
Um, you know, just like Taekwondo, they favor kicks, right? They're not necessarily favoring punching range. So that's
Right.
kind of what Tai Chi, where the specialty or the part of uh the fighting range that they're most knowledgeable in.
Yeah. So okay. So then when you got started in the JKD and you got exposed to Shisao, that must have been comfortable. But
Yes.
I'm imagining too then that the combat submission wrestling and the BJJ, that was fairly relatable too, right?
No, no, it
No.
wasn't, because it's on the ground, it changes quite a bit, right? Standing versus
Ah.
being on the ground. Now, I will say the ability to transfer wrist locks and arm
Right.
locks,
Right.
that was pretty simple. So my understanding, I had pretty good knowledge on wrist locks and elbow and shoulder locks. So using that on the ground, you just have to change a couple things. It's the same rules,
Hmm.
really. You just have to immobilize the elbow if you want the wrist, that kind of stuff. So that was
Yeah.
similar, but otherwise it was quite boring, to be honest with you.
Okay. Was there anything from the White Crane training that eased you into the new stuff? Let's call it.
Yeah, so absolutely. So White Crane Kung Fu has trapping just like Wing Chun or Jeet Kune Do. I would say the
Ah.
biggest difference is they use a little bit more circular and straight strikes, not so much just straight. And obviously, I'm not to pigeonhole anything, but like Jake, like the trapping is you're pressing forward and you're generally going straight.
Hmm.
Well, White Crane had a little bit more circular and a little bit more angles, maybe,
Right.
but it was very easy to learn because it's very similar. So that part was like being at home, like learning the trapping wasn't really an issue at all. And you're right, learning the chi sao stuff. I mean, there might be something new, but my sensitivity was already there. So
Mm-hmm.
with a couple, like, just a couple cues and stuff from my instructors, I could adjust pretty fast on the
Right.
sensitivity side.
Yeah. Okay. So with that background, right,
Mhm.
which sounds to me sounds pretty. I'll use a cliched term. Sounds pretty complete to me. How did
Mhm.
you end up going into the other stuff?
Sure. Well, I mean, honestly, it's the ground. So back when I was doing kung fu, it was like the late '90s, early 2000s, and UFC wasn't as big as it is now. But obviously, I was watching it because I was a martial artist, and you
Right.
as a martial artist and honest person, I always want to know what really works, right? And I felt okay. Well, on the ground, I'm pretty deficient. There's a couple things I knew that were uncontested, like arm bars and stuff, but I
Mm-hmm.
didn't really we watched on TV that if you don't know the ground and somebody does, eventually they can just drag you to the floor and put you in deep water.
Yeah.
So there was a gentleman named Mark Olson who originally lived up here in Bremerton, which is Bremerton, Washington, where I stay at. He he came back. Like I guess he went down to California. He trained with Guru Dan and Sifu Rambaliki and Guru Willie Loriano and
Okay.
also Sensei Eric Paulson.
Yeah.
And he ended up getting sick, so he ended up coming home to Bremerton. And I had heard about him, and I'd see him every once in a while out and about, and he'd see me, and we kind of knew each other just through the martial arts community, but I
Right.
never actually had met him. And I heard what he was training, and he was doing the Jeet Kune Do, Kali, submission wrestling, Muay Thai, and some people were just saying MMA, but he was doing all these different martial arts, and he was combining and blending them together. And obviously, he trained down in California, so that sparked my interest of always wanting to be a complete martial artist and learning how to defend myself on the ground. And there
Right.
was this opportunity with this gentleman who seemed like he, knew his information and also seemed like he was just a humble person. Because even though I didn't know him, we'd kind of wave when we passed and stuff. So I decided I would go check out his school, and I went to his school, checked it out, and I was sold. I was like, I want to learn this as well. And my main reason for initially going there is I want to learn the ground. And he was like, well, I don't teach it separately. He's like, if you're going to take the submission wrestling, you have to take the Jeet Kune Do, you have to take the Kali, you have to take the Muay Thai. And I was like, sure, absolutely. I mean, I'm a martial artist. So I was like, why would I not want to learn more?
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of how it all took off.
Okay. So he then was your introduction, so to speak, to Sifu Ron.
Yes.
It was through him
Yes.
that you guys have talked. I like that he said, well, I don't teach it separately. You gotta,
Yeah.
yeah. What was his? Did he have a structured approach to keeping it all together, or
No, not really. He actually had them in separate classes. So, he had
okay,
like a Jeet Kune Do class, a Kali class, a submission wrestling class, and Muay Thai. But I think he kind of wanted and kind of in the beginning, I would say maybe force is the wrong word, but he definitely wanted everybody to try to take all of them. He didn't really
everything?
want to teach someone only one art and without the
Right,
rest. So that was
right,
his way of kind of combining it. It was kind of making people look, if you want to learn Jeet Kune Do, you got to learn the other stuff too. If you want to
yeah,
learn submission wrestling, you got to learn the Kali too. The only
yeah,
one that he kind of let be separate was the Muay Thai. He would let some people only do Muay Thai, but anybody that was doing Jeet Kune Do, Kali, or submission wrestling, they had to take all those. It's kind of how he
mm,
had it, for
yeah,
his own personal reasons or whatnot,
yeah.
which I agree with. I like that.
Right. Do you use that approach too, or did you change it a little bit, or what?
I've softened up because the reality is, when you're running a business and someone says, "Hey, I want to learn submission
This,
wrestling," and you're like,
yeah.
"Well, you have to take these other things." They're like, "Well, I don't want to learn it," and they will just go elsewhere. So,
Hmm.
when they ask my opinion, I say, you know what? To be a well-rounded martial artist or to be well-rounded in self-defense, I suggest you take all these. This is the way I did it, and although usually the defense I get from people is like, "Well, but I want to get good. I don't want to complicate it. I want to get good at one first and then the next one." And I'm like, look, if you're taking it all from the same school, you're not going to get mixed messages,
Right.
right? It might be detrimental if you're going to a Muay Thai school and then like a Jeet Kune Do school because they might, they're going to conflict each other as far as what they're
Hmm.
saying,
Yeah,
contradict each other.
that's a good point.
Yeah, it's not the case. And as for your background as well, when you take them all together, there's attributes from one that could translate to the other art that you might not get as well in that other art. For
Right.
example, you take Savate, you learn great footwork. Muay Thai is a little bit more linear. You take them together, you get the power of Muay Thai and maybe the simplicity, even though it's not necessarily simple. And then you also get the footwork and the movement of Savate. When you blend it together, obviously you have more tools to work with, but they're complementing each other.
Right. Yeah. You
So
know,
that's how
my nickname for Savat is Kali with kicks. that's my nickname. The first time I saw Salem move, I go, oh man, that guy's he's just using female triangle and messing us up, right? So yeah, no, you're quite right. Everything complements everything ultimately, doesn't it? Right?
It does.
Yeah.
I think it accelerates your learning process,
Right.
because here's another issue when people take one and they say a year later, once I get good at Muay Thai, I'll take this.
Yeah.
It doesn't really work. There's a couple of reasons why I see it doesn't work. Sometimes when that time comes, they don't really want to be a beginner anymore. And they start doing this thing where, but when I go to submission wrestling, then they think I'm not good. And they already know I'm good at this. So then they don't want to put themselves in that position. You know, they don't want to, they're afraid to look bad. You know what I mean? You get that.
Where did that idea come from? Because I get this question a lot on other parts of the internet. People will say, okay, I plan to study Muay Thai and BJJ. Which one should I start with? And how long will it take me to learn it? Where did people get this idea that there's like a set amount of time that it takes to learn and you move on to something else?
I think, if you take it out of a martial arts context and most things in life, that probably makes sense, maybe. Right?
But
I don't
did
think
you ever look at martial art that way?
No, but I've been doing martial arts since I was 18, right? So my entire adult life,
right,
I've been doing martial arts. So I never had the chance to look at it that way. My first instructor, we did 2 styles of Kung Fu and Tai Chi, and even blended in capoeira and some other things. So I've always been this way.
So 100% of the people in this conversation, me and you, never looked at martial art like that. Like there was a certain amount of time that you take to learn something. So where did the idea come? Yeah.
I think it comes from maybe MMA, and I'm not saying that's what they're pushing, but when people say, well, how do I get good at MMA? Well, learn some boxing, learn some wrestling, learn some submissions. So they're in their head, they're thinking, okay, that means they're separating it like those are 3 different subjects. So I'm gonna go take some boxing for a little while, then I'm gonna go take some wrestling for a little while, and then I'm gonna take some jiu-jitsu for a while. I think they just misinterpreted maybe what was said, possibly. And that makes sense.
So what can we do to alleviate that situation then?
I mean, I guess we're doing it. We're talking about it on a podcast, but when people walk through my doors, I tell them the path I took is the reason why I'm where I'm at. If I would have sat there and separated it, well, right now I might be finally starting Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. You know what I mean? Like, it would be number one. We only have a finite amount of time to get proficient, and we're racing the clock. Right? We're all getting older. We all have other things in life that could possibly distract us or get in our way. So you can't assume in 5 years you could start something else. You don't know how much time you have. You're wasting that time. And if something's going to accelerate your learning, like taking multiple arts at the same time, why would you not do that? Right? The only reason why you would not do that is because you were not aware that's the case. You're confused.
Yeah.
Maybe you're
especially if everything is complementary to everything else, right? Yeah.
I think they don't think that necessarily, because if you have for example, maybe you have a Taekwondo instructor, right? And he's very traditional. You told him, well, after I'm done with this, I'm going to go do some boxing. He might, in his mind, be like, how dare you think that what I'm teaching you is not good enough and you need something else to supplement it. So there's also that traditional mindset as well, which obviously, because of our lineage, we don't necessarily think that way. But a lot of martial artists, maybe not as much as before, do think that way. Or they're worried about offending their instructor. So they have to wait till they leave or something.
Hey, describe somebody's entrance into your school, your intake procedure. Like what's the first thing that happens?
So I'll give you an example. So a lot of times would say they see us on Facebook or Google, they see an ad or something, or maybe they see an Instagram reel of what actually happens in class. They opt in, whether through that or via our website, right? They opt in their information. And my appointment setters, they give them a call. They'll be like, hey, Dwight, I saw that you're interested in our Jeet Kune Do program. Is that correct? Are you asking for yourself or somebody else? what kind of background have you ever done martial arts? Why do you want to do Jeet Kune Do? What are your pain points? We don't necessarily use the word pain points, but we try to find a trigger. Maybe you got beat up, or maybe you have low self-esteem. And then once we get through that process and we know what, they are correct for that particular program, we offer them a free class. Hey, would you like to come in for a free class to see if you like what we have to offer, and also the instructors and the environment that we teach it in. And then they come in for that free class. When they walk in, they fill out a waiver, they get a free shirt, a free water bottle, free water, excuse me. And then the appointment setter gets them all the gear they need for that trial class, and then they introduce them to the instructor. The instructor brings them into class, partners them with somebody that's proficient. They go through the class. After the class, the instructor sits down and talks to them. How'd it go? Did you like it? Can you see yourself coming here? Can you see yourself, reaching your goals with what you saw and did today? And then we kind of ask about their schedule. How many days would you like to train? What's realistic with your schedule? And then if they say yes, 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 we open the book. We pick the options that we think are going to be best for them according to what they already told us. And then we pitch to them. And that's and then they join or they don't join. And that's kind of how our onboarding system works.
Yeah. Is everybody on staff cross-trained to do that, or do you have like specific people assigned to that?
So for the most part, my entire staff is cross-trained, but for the most part, they have certain roles they're in majority of the time.
Right.
But in case, as you know, I'm out of town a lot. In case someone's not there, or I'm out of town, or someone's sick, the appointment setter could sell. The appointment setter who sells could also teach at least a beginner class. And then they can also, do cleaning the mats and all that kind of stuff as well. So I try to teach all my staff members to be able to do multiple jobs.
Right. How does somebody get a job at Shaolin Mixed Martial Arts?
There's a few different ways. Usually the best way is to get someone internally. So what I mean by that, usually someone that's a student is our best candidate, because of the wide variety of things we teach. It's better if you're already a student and you're already taking, especially JKD and Kali. Like, it's easy to find outside people for like kickboxing or Brazilian Jitsu. But when you start talking about more of a niche art, like the things we do, there's not as many Jeet Kune Do and Kali schools running around there where people have previous background. Right. So I usually like to pull from people that are my students that I know who they are. I know their personalities. I like to know to an extent their integrity. And a lot of times I'll ask, hey, are you interested in teaching at all? And I kind of start from there. Every once in a while I have hired from the outside, makes it a little bit tougher. What I do when I bring someone in from the outside that already has martial arts experience, I usually throw them in the art that they don't know.
Okay. All right, wait. No, he froze.
And afterwards we'll sit down and talk. And I see their temperament on doing something they've never done before or don't like. Or I shouldn't say don't like, never done, to see if they forget that they're technically being interviewed. If they lose their cool, if they're rude, if they don't like learning new things, then that's a red flag.
Have you ever been interviewing a prospective student and got the vibe that this person might be a good employee one day?
Maybe not when they're first coming in on a trial, but maybe even only after a few short weeks of being a student. I'm like, if this person sticks with it, they'll be a great employee here, because not only are they learning stuff fast, but they have the right personality. They like to help others, and you could just tell, right? Some people just pop. So
because I ask you that because I know that in the old days, a mistake, I hate to characterize it that way, but I've come to believe it really is a mistake. In the JKD world, very often we would reward talent, not necessarily attitude. Sure. Right? So if a guy was talented, that's somebody that we would start to build up.
Yeah.
And invariably, that person turns around and does what, right? They don't stick around.
Absolutely.
But that was always our thing. That was always, and I think we did it because we always, when we saw somebody becoming skillful, like we thought, okay, I'm doing a good job because look at how well this guy is coming along. So
Yeah,
so right. So I'm doing a good job as an instructor because people are learning and whatever. And we weren't really checking their characters. You know,
sure,
it's like martial arts
sure.
skill took precedent over everything else. I did I ask you? Yeah, I did ask you what you retained from your background. You have you have a separate Tai Chi program, right?
I do.
If okay,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
is that populated by more mature individuals?
yeah, it's it's mainly more like the older demographic that tend to gravitate towards Tai Chi. So, I'd say maybe people, I mean, we have a mixture, but may say probably people over 50. So most people that come in for Tai Chi, they're looking for the health and fitness aspect. So
Hmm.
although I do teach the martial aspect, my emphasis is more towards obviously my clientele or my students.
Right.
So obviously in the beginning anyway, but we focus on the form and the breathing and the body mechanics and balance. And then as they stick around and they progress, that's when I start to introduce the push hands and the weapons and those things. And usually by then they completely bought in. So
Hmm.
even if they initially came in for health and fitness, they kind of just want to learn what's the next step in Tai Chi because they're
Right.
invested in Tai Chi.
Yeah. So okay. So how do you keep all this stuff um, in your head, or how do you how do you keep all this seemingly disparate stuff in a way that doesn't drive you crazy?
Well, I mean, here's the thing, right? Obviously, some of them I didn't learn all at the same time is one thing, but I've always taken notes since the very beginning, and the
Hmm.
notes are very valuable because you're talking about some of the stuff I did 24 years ago, and I don't care how good your memory is, you start to forget how a class was structured or a lot of other things that are going on, and I've always taken extensive notes
Yeah.
and I've typed them up and I put them in my Dropbox. Back then I just had notepads and thankfully I
Right.
didn't lose any of them. But I've
Right.
typed everything up and I've made different outlines and different things for myself,
Hmm.
right? But I think that has really helped me
Okay.
is I have notes every class I teach. I For the most part I make an outline. I may never go back to it, but I have
Right.
them all filed. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, who's gonna inherit all your notes when you're not around?
I don't know if the notes are going to help them that much. I guess the
Yeah.
person that would inherit it is the person that's taking their own notes.
Yeah.
My when my original instructor and even myself, I get frustrated when people ask me for handouts. And I used to get really frustrated, but then I learned to adapt and change. And I like to try to be better than some of my instructors are very short, right? As far as their temperament and maybe they smack people when they shouldn't have, and a lot of things you can't get away with now. Also, if you want students and also not to get sued.
Yeah.
But I used to have this big thing when people used to ask me for handouts, and I'm like, look, anything I hand out to you, they're not handouts, they're my notes. So I'm like, so you need to take notes.
Hmm.
And that's the key. Me handing you a piece of paper with the answers is not going to get you're not that's going to sit in the back of your car.
Right.
You're not really going to value that piece of paper unless you are the one that spend the time to actually create that paper.
Yeah.
And over the years, it was very hard to convince people that they needed to take notes. They would make excuses like, "Well, how do I take notes? This and that." I'm like, "I'm not your third grade teacher. You're grown-ups. I'm not here to teach you how to take notes, and you will have to find your own way to take notes, especially when it comes to martial arts." Um, but that's kind of like the person that would inherit it from me. I think is the person that I see understands the value of doing whatever you can to grab the material. Because as you know, Sifu Ron Blakey is my instructor. Where does he live? California. Where do I
Right.
live? Washington. Where's his school? He doesn't
Yeah.
have one. He has a traveling school. So
Yeah.
how was I able to get all this information over the years? People are like, "There's no way."
I don't.
Well, I
I don't think it's accurate to say that he lives in California.
where do you live? The Caribbean? Yeah,
Right.
it's
I
his
don't think.
birthday day.
I know. I plan to message him later today. But I mean, when's the last time he was in California? He hasn't been in California in what, like 3 months?
It's been a while. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'll see him in the Caribbean again in November for Caribbean camp. So who knows when he's getting home?
Oh
But
man.
but yeah, so because I've had a lot of instructors where I had to travel to see,
Yeah.
I understood so much, even way before then, thankfully, that the value of my notes. What happens if, like we trained on the beach? Fortunately, this is not common. We have video. That's not common. You know that, right? So
Right.
without my notes, when I get home, if I couldn't remember something, how I'm going to wait 6 months until I see you again? Like, right? So if you take great
Yeah.
notes, you start to
Yeah.
forget. You could refer back to your notes. So yeah. Someone that's
Yeah.
understands to go get it. They got to be a go getter, I guess.
It's funny, but the more I hear more people talking about their experiences. Everybody seemed to have gone down the same path. They take notes like during the seminar, but then you go home or you go back to the hotel room and you type them out,
Yep.
into proper English, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Otherwise, sometimes I
'Cause-
write, "Don't forget this right here," and then if I don't go back right away, I'll be like, "What am I not supposed to forget?"
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's valuable, and, it gives you mental reps. When I used
Yeah.
to travel out the Federal Way to see, Sifu Chris Clark, and this is, man, 10 years ago, over 10 years ago, so, technology
Yeah.
was slightly different, right?
Yeah.
We start to forget what was here, what not, but,
Yeah.
I'd take my notes, and the whole way home, I'd be, like, thinking in my head, "All right," I'll be reviewing it in my head, and I get home, and I type it on my Word doc, right? Those are extra reps. When you're trying to
Right.
visualize how to clean up your notes and stuff, you're getting reps in. So by the
Mhm.
time the next day I had a private student or a friend I'm training with, I
Mhm.
didn't have to actually refer to my notes that much because I've been doing it over and over again for the last couple of days.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. So I'm smiling because because this is what happened to us down in Nevis. Um, you just mentioned Federal Way again, right? And you're in Bremerton,
yes,
right? And so I remember I was telling you that in my very, very early days at Eastern Airlines, my two best friends, one was from Federal Way and one was from Bremerton, um,
yeah,
which is how do you pronounce it? Kitsap County?
Kitsap County. It's about an hour
Kitsap
away
County,
from Federal Way, maybe a little bit
right?
less, but about an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um, and your school was voted best martial arts school a few years ago in
yeah,
the
in
county,
Kitsap
right?
County, 2019. Yes.
What's the martial arts scene in Bremerton like?
In this area, which Bremerton is connected to Silverdale and Port Orchard, so we'll call it all in one. There's one other Jeet Kune Do school, from a student of Chris Clark's named Dale.
Hmm.
Other than that, there's 4 or 5 Brazilian Jitsu schools now,
Oh
and
wow, really?
I don't know how many of the karate and taekwondo schools there are, to be honest with you,
Yeah,
because I don't really feel like I don't feel like we're in direct competition, even though technically they are my
yeah,
competitors, but
right. If
the
they're
people
martial
we're
art, yeah.
seeking might be a little bit different.
Hmm.
But it's a pretty small town, so I wouldn't say there's more than there used to be. Because before there were just certain schools that had like the monopoly in certain you know
Yeah.
arts, but now it's kind of especially Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. There's starting to become a lot of schools out here.
Have a lot of people been leaving Seattle for Bremerton?
No, I don't think
No.
so. I don't know what they're probably all going to Texas, probably Austin, right?
Yeah, yeah. Um, what what when they come to you, do they come to you specifically for anything, or is it just that they typed in martial arts near me and because of the
Mm.
zip code or whatever, your school came up?
I would say the majority just don't know anything about martial arts. So the majority come in because they
Uh,
want a better way to get in shape, to
yeah.
lose weight. They want to learn self-defense. So the average person that walks into most typical martial arts schools, unless you have like a fight gym, they generally just, they generally have zero to low experience. So they're not usually the ones that are like, I'm seeking out Bruce Lee's art or I'm seeking out Brazilian, I want to be the next Hoist Gracie. You don't
Hmm.
get very many of those, in the grand scheme of things. So most of
Hmm.
them are, regular people, right? That, work a little 9 to 5. Maybe they used to be athletic in high school, or maybe they always wanted to do martial arts and they kind
Right.
of feel like, you know what? I'm too old or it's too late. I don't know anything. And kind of what we do is we tell those people you're not too old, right? Martial arts is an acquired skill that anybody can learn at any age. You just have to have the right environment and the right instructors to teach you.
Yeah.
Kind of
Yeah.
what we do.
Yeah.
So our mission is we train regular people real martial arts for self-defense, fitness, and sport.
Right. Yeah. So tell me about the sport thing, because I mean, you're like a certified coach for fight teams and what have you, right?
I mean, I wouldn't say certified by for fight teams, but I mean, I've cornered fighters.
Hmm.
And I, back when I trained with Mark Olson, my original JKD colleague, Muay Thai instructor. Few years into that, we kind of opened a additional branch to his school. His name of his school is Martial Arts Training Academy, but we also had Full Circle Fight Club. It's
Okay.
one and the same kind of, but the martial arts school, Martial Arts Training Academy was where the students went, and then
Yeah.
people that aspired to also fight kind of branched over to Full Circle Fight Club. So, that's where I kind of started my, my fighting and stuff. And then I would also corner some of the fighters that we had come out of there as well.
Yeah. Who came up with the name Full Circle Fight Club?
Sifu Mark Olson, because everything comes full circle. Right. So that
Interesting.
was kind of his mindset on that.
Was that a deliberate thing? Because a lot of people learn through alliteration.
Mhm.
So that's why Coca-Cola and Google, that's why their names are recognized, right? So Full Circle Fight Club, right? The FCFC, the repetition of FCFC, right? Do you know if he even thought of that, or he just,
I do not know. He may
huh?
have. The only thing he really mentioned is that he was just talking about how everything in life or in
Yeah,
martial arts or everything comes full circle. So
yeah,
that's kind of where he got that from. I don't know if there's any really more
yeah,
to that or not, but
yeah.
yeah.
Um, let me ask you this, because you said that a lot of people come because they're looking for health and fitness and what have you. So do you make sure that every class they huff and puff, that every class is kind of like a workout?
Um, I don't make sure. I do try to, but
Hmm.
sometimes I wouldn't do it to the detriment of the whatever I'm teaching that day. Sometimes when you're teaching, say, stick and dagger or some Kali stuff, I mean, could you make it always huff and puffing if they're at the right level? Absolutely, right? Because
Yeah,
even doing Heaven 6, you could crank it up, right? You could go
yeah.
up, down, you could go to the floor, the fondo, whatever. But I do try more so in the beginner classes. In me advanced, they start to understand if we're doing, if we're doing like stick and dagger stuff, your brain's going to get a huge workout, but you may not be going fast enough necessarily to huff and puff. But they're at the level where they've already bought in, they understand. Sometimes it's going to be more technical, right? And it's a little bit slower. And other times, we're going to be huffing and puffing and hand on our knees. And other times it's going to be a little bit in the middle. But
Hmm.
for definitely in the kickboxing class, you should probably always huff and puff, right?
Right.
Because
Yeah.
there's it's pretty hard not to, unless you're being really, really technical with the clinch. But you should do a little bit of free flow and stuff with that.
Yeah.
But it's not
Your
a necessity.
your kickboxing um, program
Mhm.
they're not separately taught, right?
Well, I have a beginner class and then I have an intermediate advanced class,
Okay,
but
but
I
in
don't
terms of
provide
the
the art
technical
still, no.
base, oh, okay. So
So,
that
for example, in my intermediate advanced class, this quarter, I have some Muay Thai drills in there. I have some Savat drills, and I have some more MMA kickboxing drills, all in this 2-month cycle we're in right now.
ah,
Um, in the beginner program, I have what's called Essentials 1, 2, and 3. Right. Most of it is made up of Muay Thai because gross motor skills.
mhm,
Right? Like it's,
mhm,
kind of like throwing a Thai kick and a switch kick and a hard cross and like a elbows is easier to learn than dancing around like Salim or Nikolai. You know what I mean?
right, yeah,
So in most of the beginning, kickboxing is a little bit more gross motor skill stuff, so they can build their, just their basic techniques, and then we start to make it a little bit more complex.
mhm, yeah. Um, I'm trying to remember what it was that Sifu Dan said about the difference between Muay Thai and Savat. Although, I mean, I'm pretty sure I haven't spent as much time with Nikolai as I spent with Salem. But
Hmm.
I mean, even let's say with the flicky Savat kick,
So them could still hit. And I'm sure Nick, as skinny as he is, he can hit real hard. Right?
Yeah, I'm sure he can. I mean, he's a former what do you call it? Savat, was it World Cup champion or whatever they call it?
Mm-hmm.
But he's pretty accomplished.
Yeah.
And he's in shape. I mean, I don't know, he's in his 50s, but that guy moves around like, he could do it all day. And he actually used to he finally quit smoking. But up until a few years ago, during the breaks, he was outside smoking cigarettes. You know what I mean?
Oh my God.
The rest of us were dying, or we're not
Right.
smoking. But
yeah.
So, yeah, he's always in shape.
That's interesting. Yeah, no, I think if you move more than you smoke, or if you move as much as you smoke, you might be able to survive it, right?
Yeah, if you're used to it, absolutely.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, so I wanted to ask you about. I got to find my notes here. 350 active students.
Correct.
That's a hell of an accomplishment, no matter what type of martial art you're in.
Right? Even harder with what we do. I've been told by a few business coaches and some colleagues that I needed to simplify my schedule, meaning,
Mm-hmm.
instead of calling it JKD Kali class and then kickboxing class and Mr. Wrestling, just call it martial arts class and teach what you want. And it's just not the way I wanted to do it. I understood where they're coming from. Simplicity a lot of times is the key to success, right? And keep it simple, like Apple, right? That's kind of their model. You do probably have a clearer path to success. What I'm doing might be a little bit of a longer route, possibly.
Mm-hmm.
But I've made it work. I think, you can't sacrifice your passion, your love to generate revenue, right? Because you're going to lose some of your passion. And without your passion, they're going to feel that you're not, that you're lacking the passion and stuff.
Yeah.
And that's going to take away.
They can tell. People can tell when your heart is not in it, when you're just, dialing it in, as they say. Has anybody ever asked you what you might be doing if you weren't doing this?
I don't know if they asked me, but for a long time, I sold cell phones. I was a manager at Radio Shack. I worked at AT&T. I worked at T-Mobile. I mean, so I don't know if anybody's really asked. They always knew what I did,
mm-hmm.
to an extent. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's funny though.
I'm trying to picture Victor Young selling cell phones 9 to 5 and then doing martial art in the evening.
That's pretty much the way it was. I would do my day job.
Yeah.
And then I would teach. I was teaching private lessons at the time, mainly on my days off. I would teach like 7 or 8 private lessons back to back.
Wow.
Right. And then I was also teaching Tai Chi at the YMCA at 7:30 in the morning, twice a week for like 10 years, just so I could teach. Right. So anytime I wasn't at my regular job, I was pretty much either training martial arts or teaching martial arts, or I was doing something that was connected to martial arts. Like I worked security at a bar for a couple of years. The only reason why I had that job is because I wanted to test my martial arts. So that was like the main goal. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. That work ethic is why you're still so skinny, even as you grow older, huh?
Yeah. Now I used to think I couldn't gain any weight, but actually I gained a little bit of weight like 6-7 months ago. So I had to kind of, get focused a little bit more. I'm 41 now, so starting to, metabolism slows down a little bit.
I got equipment bags that are older than you, man.
That's right. I'm an old 41 though. 24 years of martial arts, starts to start to get you.
What about the kids class? When did the kids class start? Can you remember the first person enrolled in that?
Do I say that one more time?
Can you remember the first person enrolled in kids class?
Yeah. So when I used to teach private lessons, I had a private small group of kids. I had like 3 or 4 of them. And I had this kid named Bailey. His dad I met him when we used to work security together. He was my boss when we used to bounce.
Okay.
So his son was one of my first students. And then another good friend of mine that we also used to do martial arts together, but his daughter was one of my first students, and my stepson. So those 3 were like my core. There's a few others that came in and out.
Right. Yeah.
And I used to teach at the back of an office building in a back door that was literally like the basement of an office building. It was like concrete walls. It was pretty sketchy. But those were the first three. I mean, with minus subtract my son, since obviously he doesn't really pay. But this kid Bailey and this girl named Naya, they were like my first kid students. And the one Bailey, he moved away just real recently. He actually came back for the summer and came and trained a little bit.
Okay.
And the other one, she just kind of, she got to high school and stuff and isn't doing it anymore. But they were with me for a long time.
Right. Yeah. That's where I was going with this. If you'd ever trained anybody from, from grade school up to college age, and then they went off and.
Not quite, because I haven't been around quite long enough, but I got a few, well, I had this one, he's not a kid anymore, but I had this one kid named Caleb. He actually started at the same Kung Fu school I did. He just started way after me. So he was 6 when I was already like in my 20s, but I was still teaching at the Kung Fu school. And, I used to train him. He used to be in some of my classes because I used to help my instructor teach.
Yeah.
So he was there since he was 6. And then he was there all the way until I opened my school in, 2018.
2008, yeah, 18.
The same year I opened the school, the same month, my instructor shut his school down. So his
yeah. You tell us about that. You 2 schools that you attended closed.
That's not even the one I'm referring to, though. I'll get there in just a second. But that's pretty funny.
Okay.
By the time my Kung Fu school closed, I was no longer even going there to help anymore. Time had just kind of passed, right? Yeah. When I got the job at MKG Seattle, I could no longer help teach because I was commuting to Seattle from Bremerton. So I had to stop doing that like in 2015. But in 2018, when I opened my school, the same month, his school shut down. So this kid, Caleb, his dad brought him to me like, hey, Caleb, he was about to get his black belt in Kung Fu, and we know you got a school and you're from the same lineage, and he also wants to learn the new stuff you got.
Yeah.
Can I bring him here? Absolutely. At this time, I think he's 15 or 14, maybe 14. Okay. So he comes and joins my school. And then for the next 3 years, he learns JKD Kali, and he's excelling. At first, he's struggling because the differences. He even fought under me and won his Muay Thai fight all the way until he was 17. And then right now, he's not training, but 6 to 17, off and on, that's pretty good. And he's really good.
Yeah.
I wish he'd come back. He's super talented.
Yeah. Man.
Oh, the schools. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah.
So, like I said, around 2003, 2004, I started with Mark Olson because I wanted to learn the ground, right? And during that time from 2004 to 2010 is when his school was open. And that's how I met Sifu Ron. Sifu Ron would fly up and do seminars because he was, Mark Olson was underneath Sifu Ron.
Okay.
So that's how I met, Sifu Ron is once a year, or once every 2 years, he would do a seminar, and I went to every single one. Now, in 2010, my instructor, Mark Olson, shut his school down. And when he shut his school down, that's when he gave me my black belt and everything. But he shut his school down. So then I was like, where am I going to train? Like I wanted, even though I got a black belt, he had so much more still to offer, right? So then I was like, I was looking at Cliff Linderman's school and also Sifu Clark's school. Well, I originally went to Sifu Cliff school, and I called them up and said, hey, I already do JKD Kali under Sifu Mark Olson. They kind of knew who I was. And they're like, well, come and do this introductory class. I was like, okay, but I live really far away. They made me drive out there, have me do a little 15-minute class with, one of their instructors, and then sent me on my way and told me to come back the next day and Sifu Cliff would talk to me. So then out my door, I call Sifu Clark School, right? Northwest with Kali.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they're like, well, just come in right now and you can start training. So I went over there, signed the waiver, did CSW, Muay Thai, and JKD Kali that day. And, Sifu Clark's like, it was like a great fit. So I never went back to Sifu Cliff school. Hopefully he doesn't watch this because, he's a great guy, but I never even got to meet him at that time. And then I started going to Sifu Clark school, but then a few months later, he shut down and moved to Oregon.
Right.
So then that's 2 schools that shut. So I was like, where do I go?
Yeah.
I was pretty frustrated. I was like MKG Seattle, but man, it's far, right? It's Northgate. I live in Bremerton, Northgate, hour and a half. And that's with no traffic. Right. And, like the Seattle traffic is terrible. Right. What time do classes go? 5, 6 p.m. rush hour, right? It was like a 3-hour trip every time I went. So I ended up I went out there. At first, I was like, I don't know. The environment was so big and so much like a gym, because they had a CrossFit side, martial arts.
Yeah.
But I ended up joining because I like Sifu Annie. I knew I knew he had material and he was good. So I joined there. But it was just difficult because I could only really make it out there twice a week for a couple hours, and it was a lot. I'm spending like 4 or 5 hours driving on these days. I'm still working like AT&T, so it's like I didn't really have the time I do now.
Right.
And then to kind of pull this all together, I used to go to obviously to Guru Dan seminars, and he opened my eyes when he told me he told me Rick Fay is a seminar student. I'm like, what? Like the guy that you say is one of your top 3 students of all time didn't actually live in California and train with you every day. He literally just went to all the seminars.
Yep.
And I was like, no way. I was like, this is impossible. Like in my head, I'm trying to understand this. And then, on the internet, I'm like, oh, Sifu Ron has these Mars camps. I like Sifu Ron. Like I really gravitated towards him in his style, right? He kind of has if it doesn't work, I don't teach it. Like, he knows how to actually apply his martial arts, right?
Yeah.
And he was really nice and everything. So Guru Dan gave me the idea of, what? I'm just going to fly out everywhere Sifu Ron goes every other month.
Okay.
And I'm just going to train with them and I'm going to test with them every single time. And that's probably why I'm here right now, right?
Yeah.
Talking to you, right?
Yeah.
Because I figured it out. I was like, oh, this is possible. So I'd save all my money from my private lessons, right? I'm teaching every week private lessons, maybe 12, 13 lessons a week. I was saving all that money. I was spending all that money on airfare and seminars and all my vacation time from my job to get to these seminars. And, I was testing all the time with Sifu Ron because I already knew Mark Olson's curriculum. I accelerated through the JKD pretty fast because it was pretty much the same material. But that's how I ended up doing what I do now, which is travel everywhere and train, take my notes, and kind of go through what I do.
Was it you who posted something recently about your favorite place to hang out, the Delta Lounge or something? Was that you?
Yeah, it was me. So my business coach, Paul Jaime, he kind of put me on and helped me like understand that, and everybody knows if you have a points credit card and stuff, you could get all these perks and stuff.
Right.
Well, he kind of really put me on, taking all my business expenses and putting it onto my American Express Delta card. So I get all these points and I'm constantly flying Delta. The Delta Lounges, I spend a lot of time there since I travel a lot, and you get free food, free drinks.
Yeah.
Right. You just sit there and hang out. So it's a fun place to be. And I'm there a lot. That's why I put that. Yeah. Delta Lounge is great.
Yeah. Poor Sifu Asano probably doesn't have time to hang out in the lounge because, he probably just gets to the airport in time to board, rather than to hang out.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Oh, man. So you're going to, where are you off to next?
Next, in the very beginning of October, end of September, I'm going to Scottsdale, Arizona for a martial arts business. This part of a martial arts business mastermind I'm part of called Combat Business. So I'm going there for martial arts business training stuff for a few days is where I'm going next.
Right.
Right after that, in the beginning of November, I got a CSW affiliate camp with Sensei Eric Paulson down in Atlanta, Georgia. At Alan Baker's school.
Alan Baker's, yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And then the following week, 2 days after I get back, I'm going to Mars Caribbean in Cozumel. You should go to that. You should come to that one. You should go.
Yeah.
That one's gonna be fun.
Yeah. Okay. And what does your wife have to say about all this traveling?
That's why she's my wife. I don't know if you know this. As far as I know, you're not married, and there might be a good reason, right? There's a good reason why I didn't get married for a long time. As you know, over the years, martial arts has helped me get a lot of girlfriends. It also has helped me lose a lot of girlfriends too. What I mean by that is at first they're like, oh, that's so great. You do this, that, give me a private lesson, whatever, And then once you start dating them, they're like, well, do you really need to go today? Why do you always do martial arts? And it always gets to the point where I'm like, look, this is what I do, and I don't want to resent you. So unfortunately, I don't say it in these words, but martial arts is here before you, and it's going to be here after you, right?
That's what they said to me. That's what they said to me.
Yeah.
They said,
Well,
Dwight, when I met you, I was like number 3 in your life. You know, there was martial art, there was Eastern Airlines, there was me. You never made me number 1. That's what they said
no.
to me.
You should be like, the number 1 slot was never open. Right? To say it's not the MySpace top 8. It doesn't move. But
Yeah.
yeah, so my wife has always knew this is what I do. And this is what has created this life we have where she worked at Costco for I think 17 years. But now all she does is work for the business. We own a couple homes. All right, we're very fortunate the way things have come about all through my martial arts training in the business.
Yeah.
So she's always been about do what you want to do, and she's not resentful for it. She's not like, go ahead and go out if you want to, and then you get home and you get in trouble, right? It's not.
Right.
She's always, she knows that I enjoy it. She knows I love my wife and my kids, but she knows I love to do martial arts and I like to travel. So she always, if I think about, should I go on that trip? I've been on too many. She's like, just go. Right? That's literally what she says. She's like, you should go. So she's always been encouraging and supportive of it. And then on the flip side, with the ones like when we go to Cosmo and a few of these other ones, she comes with me, some of them.
Okay.
The ones that make sense, where we actually have time to like do other things besides martial arts. Some of those trips we don't, and I don't take her on those because then it's not fair.
Yeah. Well, we saw a little bit of that a few weeks ago where guys were gone for so long, and the smart ones bring their wives in.
Yeah.
Because that definitely helps. I mean, I remember when I met Jay Heron's wife, right? They're so cute. The two of them are so cute, right? Together, you see that they're just like New York high school sweethearts. Was the vibe that I got from them.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, he's done like 60 movies, so I'm assuming I don't know how long they've been married, but I'm sure she, they understand their lifestyle and the way it has to be, and that's his, that's his career, so that's awesome.
Yeah. That was that. It appears to me though that after we left, the real partying started.
Yeah, it looks like they had beach parties, and
right.
I want to comment like, what happened to all this stuff when we were here?
Yeah.
We're there too soon. We were at the pre party.
Yeah, I think
getting warmed up.
Yeah, I think next time we should request that our filming be done later in the whole schedule of things, man.
Towards the end.
Yeah.
When Ron's ready to go to Istanbul. Yeah. That's good times, bro.
Yeah. No, I hope we get to do it again. All right, I'll work on that Cozumel thing. Because you're right.
That'll be fun. You'll love it. You'll love it. And obviously, great people. I don't know if you ever met Larry St. Clair before, but he's awesome. He's
one of those who has not yet agreed to come on my show.
Oh, really?
Yes, I might be wrong, but I am pretty sure I have reached out to him, but he hasn't agreed yet. So
he's a busy guy. I wonder why.
I know. Yeah.
I'll ask him.
So now I've had you. I've had Cliff Lenderman, Peter Wen, Ed Stahl twice, 2 or 3 times, I think. Ed's been on. JD Olson's been on. So who? Okay, so who am I? Randy Ciordia has been on. Anthony Fontana has been on. Who am I missing? Who am I missing from the Mars?
Okay, you haven't got Troy Miller
coming up.
Okay, you got him.
We got to wait.
I got a good one for you, Dan Rizzuto, but he's busy.
Yeah,
but that's
I met him. I met him 2 years ago when Ron was there in Miami Beach with Anthony Fontana. Yeah, and we talked about it, but I have not been able to get to him.
I'm sure he would want to do it, but he's very busy. But he's he's got a phenomenal story. And I hope I don't say this incorrectly, but I think at one point he was even possibly an orphan. And obviously he's been with Guru Ron for a long time, and boy is he good. Like I should say naturally gifted, but he's also a stunt guy. Right. So he knows all the call. He's a full instructor under Guru Ron, I believe now. He's a BJJ black belt. But his stunt school, what they do there is they're throwing people around and doing all this. They're doing Silat, Kali, and they're professional stunt guys. He used to own a school called M1 Fighting up in Canada, Vancouver, and all they did was just drill all this fight choreography stuff.
Wow.
And training with him in martial arts is awesome too. But he's good. He's got Ron stuff down. You know, he's been training with him forever.
Yeah.
Super nice guy. He's loyal to Ron. And he's in the film industry. He's killing it. He's doing more movies than Ron does. You know, he's really doing an awesome job. If you could get him, he'd be a fun one. And his story, I don't know his whole story, but I know enough of it. He's like one of those, you know, shouldn't have made it type stories.
Yeah, you know, that's the thing. I mean, I've had some people complain to me that that when I do the Jeet Kune Do dialogues, that we don't talk enough about Bruce Lee and Jeet Kune Do. And I'm like, really? I'm like, really? I mean, so imagine every Friday for 60 minutes, all I ask somebody is, what do you think about Bruce Lee? What?
Right.
Like,
I mean, yeah.
Right.
I think the whole point is
there's nothing else to your life.
I think if you ask about people's lives, you could see where the influences have come in a lot of times, right? Like, you know, you could see where the Bruce Lee influence or the Guru Dan or however you want to put it, influence has come in to their lives. And a lot of it's, you know, if you're a martial artist, a lot of it's going to be intertwined. It's going to be similar.
Right. Yeah. I mean, so much so that I talk about the Jeet Kune Do itself, or maybe even Bruce Lee and Jeet Kune Do's influence on people. Ultimately, it becomes invisible. You know, because it's interwoven, like you said. So it's seamless, right? So you're no longer doing Jeet Kune Do or whatever. You are Jeet Kune Do, right? Just the way you look at life, the way you do things, right? The way you run your school, the way your relationships are structured, whatever. The JKD influence is obvious to those who are smart enough to recognize it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And sometimes that's the problem. There's not enough smart people in Jeet Kune Do.
I'm gonna let people attack you. I'm gonna not.
But see, saying there's not enough smart people is not the same as saying that there are no smart people. There's a lot of smart people, but there's not enough yet. There's still work to be done. You know what I mean? Right? Yeah. All right, man. So okay. What are you doing for the weekend? Are you guys open on Monday or you take Labor Day?
No, we're going to be closed on Monday. I got kids testing going on Saturday since, as you know, I've been in and out of town for the last month or so. I've been gone so much. I got kids testing to do on Saturday. Monday, we're just going to be closed.
All right.
So that's kind of what's going on. I'm not doing anything special. My kids got to go to school next week. And I just, you know, I've been training every day since I've been back. I've been doing mainly more like jiu-jitsu and stuff, but obviously I'm teaching at night. You know, I teach all my classes right now. I've been teaching a little bit extra to make up for me being gone so much.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like working 12-hour days in the Caribbean. Only, you know, that was a shock for me. I was telling you, I was like, you know, I work 2 or 3 hours a day, and now I got to work 12 hours, and I have to raise my hand to go to lunch and stuff.
Yeah. What the heck? Yeah. What the heck? Yeah. Going to lunch at midnight. What the heck is that? Right. And then going to bed when the sun's coming up. That, you know. I don't know about that.
I just wanted the sun to come up so we could go home. And then Ron's like, not yet. He's like, no, guys. He's like, don't clap for them yet. They got to stick around and put everything away.
Yep. Hey, did you get any of those photographs of the whole group of us? I haven't gotten.
No, those. I have not. So Ron, whose cameras were being used? That's true. Ron's. We need to ask him. I forgot about those ones where we're holding guns and stuff. I forgot all about that.
Yeah.
So I'm sure Ron has a couple of them. Maybe some other people. They'll all come up. But we can message Ron.
You know what? No, I'm gonna ask T. Roy Miller because maybe it's easier for him or easier to get a hold of him because Ron being in Turkey and what have you. Who knows?
Ron's fine. He's not working 12-hour shifts anymore. He's only working like 7-hour shifts right now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, hopefully everybody will tune in to watch the two of us reminiscing and what have you. Hey, man, it's been a pleasure to talk to you. It was a real pleasure to finally meet you and do some stuff with you. That was fun. Right.
I'm sure we'll do it again, and maybe this time you don't have to worry about getting flipped through a table. Right? Or me trying to do a back break fall with no gator.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff.
Yeah, you know, and learning how to hobble, learning how to limp and attack people.
Yeah. Yeah. Clearly, I got to learn some of those things. I'll be more prepared next time, so I don't get yelled at and stuff.
I hear you. All right, man.
Yeah.
Listen, have a great weekend, right? And you take care, and we'll talk again soon. All right.
All right. Awesome. Thank you
Okay,
for
man.
having
All right.
me.
Take care.
Here.
All right. That was Jeet Kune Do Dialogues, episode number 237 with Victor Young. You can find him on Facebook at Victor Young, and also at Shaolin Mixed Martial Arts out of Bremerton. Really successful school, close to 400 students. That's quite an accomplishment, no matter what it is that you're teaching. So that's it for today. Any comments that you guys have? I apologize. I still am not able to see. Well, I don't really look at the stuff while I'm dialoguing, but I know that here all I can see is what's going on the YouTube. And I've spoken to the people at Be Live, but they don't seem to be able to do anything about it for me. That's my luck with all these damn social media platforms. Apparently, if you get anything on Instagram from an account that's Dwight D. Woods. Actually, it's like _ Dwight D. Woods __. If you get anything from that account on Instagram, it's not me. Just ignore it. I'm not asking anybody for sponsorship in anything. I'm not asking anybody to do anything in Bitcoin. I'm not offering to send people $2,000 scholarships, or that's not me, not my style, right? If I send you something, you will know that it came from me. You can ask them a fun question to prove that they're me, right? Because you guys know my background and what have you. Although I should tell you this: next Wednesday, instead of the a regular I Love Jeet Kune Do broadcast, I'm gonna do I think on Reddit they used to call it an AMA, an Ask Me Anything. A few people over on the I Love Jeet Kune Do page asked me to if I would just come on and answer some questions that they have sent in. So we'll do that next Wednesday in place of a regular I Love Jeet Kune Do broadcast. Right, next Friday, Jeet Kune Do Dialogues episode with I lost my notes here. Give me 1 second. Let me pull it up. Jeet Kune Do Dialogues episode number 238 with where'd it go? Oh shoot! I hope I'm not messing up his name. With Aidan Cochran out of the UK, right? I'll have his name straightened out by next Friday when we do this, right? So until then, this is Dwight Woods, the Jeet Kune Do Rebel, signing off. You guys have a great weekend. Those of us here in the U.S. Well, is Labor Day celebrated all around the world? I'm not even sure, right? Anyhow, if it is a holiday weekend where you are, have a great time, and I'll see you guys next week. Talk soon. Take care now.